Hey everyone. Unfortunately for this week's episode, we ran into some technical difficulties with our video equipment and weren't able to actually film our conversations. However, we did have the audio, so we were able to record everything we discussed.
So the video you're about to see, it's just going to be the images that we usually look at when we film these podcasts, and you're going to be hearing our audio in the background. And as usual, if you want to just listen to the audio version, that will be on Anchor.fm or Spotify, and the links will be in the description.
Please make sure to share your thoughts, and we'll make sure that this doesn't happen again. Thank you.
Hey guys, welcome back to Car Culture TV, or as we like to call it, CCTV. I'm Aryan,
I'm Audit.
and in this week's episode, we'll be talking about the weekly news in the car world in Speed Trap. Then we'll be moving on to Hot Take, where we'll be discussing our opinions on one of the newest car trends. And then we'll be ending with a new segment called Road Trip, where we'll be discussing some cars around the world. Now, let's get into Speed Trap. So our first bit of news here, the Ferrari Enzo. It's a pretty great car. Well, it just set history again. So as you know, during the COVID era, people can't go out to car dealerships or go out to car auctions.
Right.
Well, Sotheby's just auctioned the first ever Ferrari Enzo completely online. So they did the first ever large car auction online. It was sold for about $2.3 million, which is a lot of money, but I mean,
Pocket change.
it's a car.
Pocket change.
It's a really desirable car. As soon as it was launched, this car set the precedent for all future Ferraris, and it's really been a special car for the Ferrari lineup.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to kind of see the whole world really transition over to a virtual space. And I'm very surprised that someone as old school as Sotheby's was able to transition even their auction interface, which is typically something that's super fast paced, really intense, over to the digital space. But I mean, it's been done before. eBay is known for its auctioning, and so although the things that you're auctioning for are typically not this expensive, it's just good to see them kind of keeping up, and it makes sense. I mean, everyone's got to make their money and keep their business going during these times. I'm just not surprised, honestly, that this car has sold for so much yet again. It was made in the early 2000s,
Yeah.
and we're seeing this car still increasing in value. It's absolutely a huge collector's vehicle, and it's outdated in a lot of ways, but it can still keep up with a lot of the sports cars out there right now. So it makes sense. It really doesn't surprise me.
But I think my main takeaway, the fact that Sotheby's did this, so businesses like Carvana, you buy a car online and you could pick it up at one of these car vending machines or they deliver it to you directly. The whole process of that and getting rid of dealerships is something I'm really excited about. Because as of now, a lot of states have laws, right, saying that you have to buy a car through a dealership. Companies like Tesla have run into issues because they sell their cars directly,
Yeah.
not through dealerships. And one of the big problems with that is that when you buy a car through dealership, you're actually getting hurt as a consumer because they hike up the price a lot, and there's other things you have to pay that if you bought the car directly, you wouldn't have to do that. So I'm really glad that they're doing a lot more online things and more direct car sales because that way we're finally getting out of those dealership middleman haggling prices and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more there. The thing with dealerships that's always been an issue for me, it's almost like realtors with the housing market, right? Dealers back in the day, it made a lot of sense because you couldn't just walk up to Henry Ford's door and say, I want to buy your brand new Model T. And so I totally got why they came about. They were basically a large scale distribution network to really get cars out to all remote locations. And dealers honestly had a pretty good space in the community. They typically sponsored local events, were very involved, and earned a lot of money and hired a good amount of people as well as car dealers. It was a lucrative business, especially when it first started. But I think as the internet has come about and basically digitized almost all commerce and e-commerce has really taken over, if I don't have to leave my house to buy toilet paper or paper towels on Amazon, why should I have to leave my house to buy a car? And that's really what what Carvana has kind of taken over, and they're saying, okay, now don't even worry about the dealer. Here's the price, and the way Carvana does it is, here's the price. We're not going to negotiate it. This is it, and just buy it. That's the thing I really appreciated about Tesla is they were kind of one of the first manufacturers to get out there and say, we're going to skip the middleman, no dealer. So now we're not worrying about, the fees that the dealer is adding to the car, such as the shipping or the destination charges. There's none of the middleman fees because the dealer's, of course, got to recover his money.
Yeah.
And so he typically is marking up these cars. So it's really good to see that I know the price of the car when I read about it or whenever it comes out on the company's website. And then I know about how much I should pay, maybe a little bit less than the MSRP, but I'm not worried about, having to go all the way to the corner of the country to find a car because it's $3,000 cheaper because that dealer can afford that loss in margin, whereas my local dealer may not. And so it's definitely really promising to see. And I honestly, for me, I just hope it brings down the price of cars. I just hope that consumers can easily shop for the car online. And I get the value of wanting to see the car in person and testing it out, but Carvana offers that, right? With
Yeah, they
their
do. They have
1 week policy, I think.
yeah. So some people have like 10 days, and other like systems have for like even up to 30 days of you driving the car, and any time within that 30 days, no matter what the reason is, you can just return the car.
Right, and the good thing is if, they're shipping it to your house and they're picking it up if you want to return it, as I understand it. The good thing is I don't have to really worry about the hassle of, oh no, I have to drive it all the way back to the dealer or something like that. Whereas even in real life, if as of now, if I had gone and bought a car from the corner of the country and I didn't like it, let's say the dealer even offered a return. Even then, I would have to drive the car all the way back or pay some expensive car transport business to ship my car, which would cost probably thousands more dollars. And so I'd be in a loss either way. So it's definitely promising to see companies doing this. I really hope this model keeps pushing forward. And honestly, I hope that the regulators and the lawmakers in the states start allowing it. I understand that it can hurt the dealers in the long run, but I think it's about time that maybe they even transition to a different field and emphasize that dealers can make a lot more money off of servicing, and we're still going to need OEM manufacturers providing servicing. So I would still take my Nissan to a Nissan dealership to get it fixed, but I'd like to be able to check out the car and buy it online and not worry about the back and forth of going to the dealer, playing that game of, is this number the right number? What can you get me on this car? Walking away. It's just too much of a headache, and it honestly takes so much time. It discourages a lot of people from buying cars. When they know that they have to set aside time to make it happen.
Yeah. So I think it's definitely a much more promising field, and I'm really looking forward to the future of car sales.
Absolutely.
So our next bit of news, the Chrysler Pacifica. I mean, it's not the most sought out car by car people, but I mean, it's one of like the newer minivans on the front. I mean, minivans are a dying breed, but nonetheless, they did refresh the car for the 2021 model year. And in this model year, maybe you can tell by the kind of picture that they are showing for it, it is an all-wheel drive minivan. Now, the minivan market is usually dominated by front-wheel drive cars. The only all-wheel drive minivan we've ever seen was a Toyota Sienna. So it's interesting to see that Chrysler is now making the Pacifica all-wheel drive, especially when minivans are dying.
I completely agree. Minivans have been honestly dying for the last decade, in my opinion. And it's really weird because I remember when the Pacifica first came out, I think in the early to mid 2000s, it was a crossover.
Yeah, so this is a picture of the old Pacifica here, and well, I mean, it doesn't look great, but it's clearly not a minivan. It's an SUV-ish car.
Yeah, I would say, they really stuck to the very Chrysler typical design philosophy back in the early 2000s with this car. It looks uglier now looking at it, but for its time, it looked like any other ordinary car. The thing is, yeah, it's so weird to see this car completely transition from a crossover to a minivan. Although it's nice to see that they made sure to bring back the all-wheel drive and have it kind of provide that safety as a lot of people think all-wheel drive provides.
But you got to be thinking at this point, Chrysler as a company, they're not doing too great themselves. I mean, Fiat Chrysler brand has different cars and a lot of different cars, but if you think about the cars that Chrysler themselves make, the Pacifica is almost like their only main one at this point. But so I guess they're trying to keep it relevant and stuff, even though the sector itself is dying. I mean, most families nowadays, when they're looking for cars, they'll either just pick a larger SUV or just like a small crossover. So it's weird to see that they're putting so much time and effort into their minivan still, when it almost just feels like the Chrysler brand itself just should die at this point, leaving it to just Dodge and Fiat.
I completely agree. As a lot of people know, Fiat Chrysler is kind of the umbrella brand, and within it are a lot of companies like Jeep, Dodge, Ram, Chrysler, and Fiat themselves, as well as companies like Alfa Romeo and Maserati. And so Chrysler now makes up a significantly smaller portion of that much larger automaking group. And within Chrysler, you've seen them kill a lot of models in the last couple of years. We've seen the death of the Dodge Caravan, which was the other minivan. We've seen the death of the Town and Country, which was Chrysler's.
Yep.
And so over time, the minivan segment has honestly died. We don't see Hyundai or Honda or Toyota even putting out new minivans, and even the Sienna, the other all-wheel drive minivan that would pose as this car's competitor, really hasn't had a refresh or an update in a while. The minivan that I see most often is the Honda Odyssey, and it's always been the class leader in my opinion. And so I don't know why Chrysler even took the time, made the investment to completely redesign this car, add all-wheel drive framework and chassis to this. I guess they're trying to, at this point, really satisfy a niche. I hope that they don't think this is going to be their leading seller because I just don't see it.
Like, I think at this point, honestly, it's better for them to switch back to this crossover design, maybe make the Pacifica a crossover again, flipping it back. But, like, they really need to figure out their brand stuff right now because, I mean, in this type of era where people aren't looking for minivans anymore and Fiat Chrysler reliability just keeps becoming a joke in the car world, they really need to do something special if they want to be a brand that they want to consider, like, consumers want to go to.
I completely agree with that as well. So the way I see it, at this point, Chrysler really only has two options. They can either consider adding a really decent family-oriented crossover to their lineup, keeping maybe even the all-wheel drive framework and chassis that they've already developed for the Pacifica, and really modeling it towards the family side, or they can completely shut down because at this point, they're not really providing anything valuable to the Fiat Chrysler lineup, and in terms of price and competitiveness, there's nothing there either. So I'd say those are the two ways. Definitely something to keep a track of. Watch how the Pacifica sells now within the next year or two. But I predict it's not going to be around very much longer.
Yeah, I agree. So our next bit of news here, this is something that I'm really, really excited about because, as you know, like a lot of car brands have been like making their old cars like come back. Like the Supra's come back, the like Ford Mustang, the Mach 1 is coming back, but something that we have in our foreseeable future, the Ford Bronco. So these are preview pictures we've seen for the cars, and I mean, there's clearly a lot of different types, but we're finally getting an unveil date in July. So I'm really, really excited to finally see what they're going to come out with this Ford.
Yeah, they've been talking about the Bronco, it feels like, for years now. I think it's only been like a year since really the rumors came around that they were putting one out. But I've been seeing these, these spy shots, these secret images of the car going around. There's been rumors of this is just the concept. There's going to be a baby Bronco. There's going to be a normal Bronco. And it's interesting to see that they finally revealed it and that they're getting ready now to really share it with the public. The Bronco is a really interesting car, as we kind of mentioned with the Pacifica. It's going to fill that niche of, compact crossover, really. Like, those were the compact cars. Now we're adding a higher suspension, adding all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, making it off-road, styled, and making it a compact SUV that should be an entry-level crossover, especially for a company like Ford that's typically making significantly larger cars like the Explorer or the Expedition, which are more of like mid to full size, large tanks, if you will, really. So I'm excited to see what the Bronco comes out like. It seems like in a lot of ways they're kind of lining it up to be a little bit of a Jeep competitor.
Yeah, so I'm really, really glad there's finally another competitor in the Jeep sector because as of now, if you think about cars that fit that niche, there's no real other competitors besides maybe the new Land Rover Defender. But if you think about price, it's way more expensive than a standard Jeep Wrangler would be.
Right.
So hopefully this Ford is much better priced. And if you see these are apparently the three different types of Broncos they're releasing. There's the Bronco Sport, which is the blue one in that picture, and it's supposed to be kind of like a baby Bronco.
Okay.
And it's more traditional SUV. It doesn't look too rugged, but that's like their first one. They also have the silver one you can see. That's going to be their more rugged one, and then there's also going to be a two-door coupe version, which you can see in the other picture there. And so you can see that the two-door coupe version and the more off-road catered one, those look like they're going to be like rugged Jeep competitors. But I think the Bronco Sport is probably just like a standard crossover SUV thing. But another thing I'm glad that they're bringing back, and another Jeep competitor thing, the rugged Bronco over there in silver, it looks like it has a removable soft top.
Yeah, that was one of the Bronco's biggest selling points when it first came out, I think in the 80s or 90s. It was a huge thing for the Bronco owners to have that, honestly, that two-door design really, paired with a completely removable back end, so it was look like a blown-up beach buggy. And it was really popular to drive off-road on dunes. And so I really hope people bring that back. Honestly, it's been a dying venture. You don't really see that very often. Jeeps do it, but they're like a stereotype at this point. So it'd be good to see something else in there. And honestly, I hope it's safer than the Jeep. The Jeep has a 3-star crash safety rating, and it rolls over on the Moose test aggressively.
Yep.
And so I really hope that, this car is Ford doing right and making a car that's not only a little bit more reliable than a Fiat Chrysler would be, but also having some good features, the Ford tech that they tend to be pioneering, and that rugged off-roadness with the comfort and the coolness of being able to take the roof off.
So this is like kind of like a personal thing, and I kind of like just noticed this as I was looking at that silver Bronco. Okay, if you look at the front headlights, don't they remind you of a certain German SUV to an extent? How those circles are shaped, especially on the silver one.
I'm not sure.
If you look at so think about the G class, and think about the new circle route they're looking
Ah,
at. It looks so similar at like especially at that angle when you really stare at it. It kind of looks like the front of a G class and the back of a Jeep.
and with that, you've ruined the front end of the Bronco for me. I
Like
can't stop unseeing the G-Class front end now.
especially like with the new G class that they released that have those more accented circle headlights,
Yeah.
it looks so similar to that. But the good news is that in terms of front grills, there's gonna be apparently 4 different grill options. There's gonna be like a modern one and a retro one, but well, I guess we'll just have to wait and see when July comes and that car gets released officially.
Yeah, for me, I always saw the headlights as the type of like homage to the original Bronco, and it is really cool that Ford is trying to drive this whole car build as super modular, super customizable. Change this door out, change that panel out. But yeah, all I have to say about the Bronco is I hope it comes out. I'm looking forward to it. I don't think it's going to be a game changer, but it'll be an exciting refresh.
For sure. Now let's move into hot take. So what we're discussing in today's hot take, the BMW 4 Series. So this is the old one, and it's a BMW. I mean, that's all you can really say about this car. It's a two-door coupe, and it looks like a BMW from the outside. It looks like a BMW from the inside. It's kind of underwhelming in terms of power, but I mean, the M4 is a little bit better. But yeah, the 4 Series just kind of existed for so many years.
Yeah, I've always had a hard time distinguishing the 3 Series from the 4 Series because the front and the back look identical. The only difference was really that the 4 Series was a 2-door and 3 Series was a 4-door. Outside of that, the cars have looked really similar, and yeah, I would say, especially at the entry trims, they have been lacking in power compared to their typical competitors that you would see in maybe the Mercedes C-Class and on the upper end, the E-Class. And that's the thing is, it's just been your generic, typical white bread
Yep,
BMW.
it's just very plain. Well, they decided to change it, and I'd say, in my opinion, This is like the biggest change BMW has done to their brand in like maybe 20 years. Because for 20 years, the cars have looked essentially like this. So here is the new 4 Series. Yeah, it's quite ugly. The headlights are roughly the same, and the car look is roughly the same, and most of it is roughly the same. But there's one big factor, and that's that grill. They made it bigger.
They gave BMW the kidney grills a kidney transplant.
Yeah.
And these grills are gigantic. Honestly, I'm not really sure what they were going for, but I can't stop seeing a pig's snout, like the
Yeah,
front of a pig.
it looks very like animalistic and like I don't know, not in a good way.
Yeah.
And it's very like raw and rough. It looks just so terrible, and I really don't know what they were thinking because I mean, if you want to like think about BMWs advancing, I thought they would just change headlights, make them thinner, change the shape a little bit, and keep the grill because the grill has been like their constant thing throughout the years.
Yeah.
I was not expecting for the grill to be the only thing they change, and I wasn't expecting for them to change it like that.
Yeah, and that's the thing that caught me so off guard when I saw the 4 Series refresh was we've seen the X7 refresh, we've seen the X5 refresh, we've even seen the 8 Series come back and have a new 8 Series. And with all of those, the grill was decent. I would say with the SUVs or BMW's X Series, the grills definitely got significantly bigger, but it was proportional to the fact that the cars were bigger cars, and so they could tolerate those bigger grills without looking really weird. When the 4 Series came out, it seems like they did a transplant with taking the X7's gigantic grille and slapping it onto the front of a 4 Series. Outside of that, they really didn't change that much of the car, and it looks like a 4 Series from the front and the back, more or less.
And then yeah, so like one thing I'm really upset about, BMWs are like everyone just calls them they're stale cars. All their models look the same from the outside and from the inside. So I was thinking that okay, maybe if they did such a big change for the front grille of the car, maybe they'd do a big change for the inside. Well, here the inside of the old 4 Series and the new 4 Series. Can you point out which one is which?
Honestly, this is like one of those games you'd see in the magazine for kids where it's like find
Yeah,
the difference because I am struggling. Like
exactly.
honestly, it looks like oh yeah, cool. They added some interior lighting. It probably took them 10 minutes in an aftermarket kit with LEDs.
So, in your opinion, the one towards your side is the new one?
So
Because
in
guess
my
what?
oh my goodness,
You're wrong. The one on my side is actually the new one. The one on your side with the red interior and the interior lighting is actually the old 4 Series.
that's insane. You know now that you mention it, that makes a lot of sense. I see the digital cockpit on the one on your side, and there's an analog on the one on my side. But wow, they really dropped the ball on the interior design. I mean, they didn't even drop the ball; they just copy pasted. They literally copy
They
pasted.
copy pasted and cut some of the things that like weren't there initially. Like I mean, I'm sure the car will have interior lighting, but honestly, the old 4 Series interior just looks a little bit better in the center, whereas this one just looks kind of drab.
And one of the biggest things that's always killed me about BMW is their steering wheels, right? So both of these cars, you can see by the emblem on the bottom, have the M steering wheel or their sports division steering wheel. And everyone else in the automotive industry that is worth their money and understands sport vehicles adds a D-pad or a flat bottom steering wheel to their cars. BMW just refuses to, and I really hoped that with the update they would catch up.
Hmm.
You see, AMG's wheel has become so much more innovative. They've
Yeah.
got capacitive touch, they've got these new spoke designs. It looks amazing. BMW's doesn't.
And even Mercedes' interior, the screens, the lighting, the center console, all of it has changed so much over the years, and you can see, like, clearly tell, okay, this is the old one, this is the new one. But even when you look at these side by side, you can't see a clear, like, super strong difference. And even when you do see a difference, it's hard to tell which one is really better, because they're both honestly just bad.
And that's really upsetting because when you know that their neighbors next door in Germany are Mercedes and they are class leaders in interior design, they have some of the best interiors of any automobile
Mhm.
out there. And then you look over and BMW hasn't even tried. They haven't even put in an effort. Even the air vents look really depressing. It's like they didn't try on the inside. They really didn't try on the outside. Someone slapped on big grills and they said, "Yeah, sure, why not?"
And what's even more upsetting, BMW owns Rolls Royce. Rolls Royce interiors are amazing, but why can't they translate even like a little bit of that into their cars? I just don't get it.
Yeah, that's one connection that a lot of people forget is this is the same company, the same parent company at least that owns one of the most luxurious brands in the world, one of the brands that can customize anything to the way you like it. And meanwhile, they themselves aren't really doing a good job. I'm definitely interested to see what other people out there are thinking. If anyone listening or anyone watching wants to chime in or comment or like message us and share their opinions on the new 4 series, I'm really interested to hear it because this is definitely one of the biggest changes they've made, but I also think it's one of the most polarizing. So I can't wait to hear
Yeah.
what other people are thinking.
Hmm. Now let's move into Road Trip. So, as I talked about before, Road Trip is the segment where we're going to be discussing cars around the world. And today's focus is going to be China. So, China has like a big issue with copying cars, and they get lawsuits like left and right. But one of the most recent ones we've seen, a company releasing an electric car called P7 or something like that. Well, here's their homepage. And anyone who's seen another specific electric cars brand's homepage before can recognize that this looks a lot like the Tesla Model S homepage, almost to a T. I mean, the buttons are the same, the background is nearly the same, the font is nearly the same, the specs that they're trying to advertise are nearly the same. Like,
They're
I
actually
don't get
worse.
it. They're worse. They're worse specs. Yeah, that's the funny thing. But like, it's such a blatant ripoff of another popular electric car.
It's like for me as a Tesla fan, I'm so split because part of me is like, yeah, Tesla did it right. They don't even have ads. They have no marketing budget for putting out ads for their cars. The car sells itself through people on YouTube, people sharing their own stories on social media, from people to people recommending the car, right? And the stores being in malls. No one is watching a Tesla commercial on TV, but yet they've set such a precedent for how to sell a car that a company in China is like, we're just gonna copy it.
Just gonna copy
totally
the.
move it over.
Mhm. They completely copied the marketing campaign, and they even have like the range calculator, which Tesla doesn't have on their main homepage anymore. But if you scroll down on this page, you would see a range calculator. Like They copied everything, and it's just crazy. But after seeing that, I was thinking of some other Chinese copycats that I've seen in the past. So, you're familiar with Land Rover and the Land Rover Evoque?
Absolutely.
Well, have you heard of the Land Wind?
Land Wind.
So one of these is a Range Rover Evoque, and one of them is a Land Wind, and
This is just like the BMW page. I really can't tell the difference.
yeah, and the colors are also the same, which is a funny thing. But so the one towards my side is the Land Wind, a Chinese ripoff of the one on your side, the Range Rover Evoque, and like it's crazy. From the outside, they're essentially the exact same, and the
The
reason,
wheels are the same.
the
too.
wheels are the same too, except theirs are chrome. Theirs are like little shinier
Oh
chrome.
yeah.
And like I guess the main reason these people can get away with it is because copyright laws there are not as strong. So I mean they can't sell this internationally, but it's so easy to sell a car like this there.
See, to me, like I get that, right? They're gonna abuse the system and say, "Well, we can get away with it, so why wouldn't we? We're selling a car that's the same. It's like balling on a budget. Go ahead and get the Land Wind instead of the Land Rover."
Yeah.
Cool, but like, don't people in China know the difference? Like, don't they see the car and be like, well, "This is a knockoff Land Rover. Why would I buy that?"
Exactly, because they sell Range Rover Evoques in China. So like you'd think that just people having maybe there's like a divide. It's like people with AirPods, people with fake AirPods.
Yeah.
You have the people with the Range Rover and the people with the Land Wind.
That I just don't get it. And honestly, I bet on like under the hood, the car is typically garbage.
Yeah, no, it doesn't have great specs at all. Probably has the specs of like a Mini Cooper or something.
Yeah.
Definitely nothing crazy. But I think the funniest part, in my opinion, is the fact that they called it Land Wind.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just don't
like,
get it.
Did Google Translate break down, or China decided to censor the Rover and Land Rover? I don't know what happened, but I don't know why you would want to call it the Land Wind.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a pretty blatant ripoff, but I think what I'm about to pull up next is one of the funniest ones. So, are you familiar with the Ferrari F12 Berlinetta?
Absolutely.
Are you
One of my
familiar?
favorite cars.
Are you familiar with the Porsche Cayman?
Yeah, midlife crisis, bread and butter.
Yeah, they're pretty great cars. Well, what if you could have both of them in one car?
Oh my goodness.
So this car, it's called the Eagle, I think, and well, the back is of a Porsche Cayman, and the front is of a Ferrari F12 Berlinetta, but it has a Porsche-esque logo on it, which is interesting, and the color is just wonderful. It's just a great color. It's really eye-popping.
Okay, so like a couple things immediately come to mind. First, I look at the picture right next to you, the back end of the car. Definitely a Cayman, although it's not mid-engined, by the way. There's not even an engine in the back. It's just a trunk, but they made it look like the back of a mid-engined or rear-engine
Correct.
car. And the taillights are stickers.
Yes, the taillights are stickers. They're not real
The
taillights.
taillights are not real taillights.
I think
They're
the real
stickers.
taillights are like right below that.
Right, so then they were the fake taillights, and then the real taillight bars, and then the reflectors. Okay, sure. Okay, let's say that's fine. Then we go to the front. It looks like it starred in Cars, like the Disney movie Cars.
Yeah.
I can't unsee. It looks like a cartoon. It's like if they made a Ferrari to star in Cars,
Mhm.
that's how they would draw it.
Yeah.
I can almost see the eyes on the windshield, like, it like being animated. It looks so childish. And then the badge is like a Porsche looking badge.
Yeah, which is also weird.
This car's a mess. And okay. Biggest problem.
Mhm.
The F12 Berlinetta was a front engine V12 car.
Yes, and it was
This
a
car
pretty
is-
long car too.
Right, and it was a long car. So you start the car, it's got that long hood
Mm-hmm.
where you think the engine probably is, hopefully.
Maybe. I hope it has an engine at this point.
Honestly. And then, okay, so you have the cabin, right? You have the car. It's a two-door, cool.
Mhm.
And it's got two seats inside. Then the car just suddenly ends because the back end of a Cayman is like that. It just completely ends, but the front end isn't as long. Fine. But then on the side, you can see there are inlets, air intakes.
Correct.
Air intakes going where? Because the engine's on the front. Those are typically there because it's a mid-engine car. You want to add air into the engine to keep it cool and to keep it burning, to light it up. And all mid-engine cars tend to have something similar with those side pockets. But this car has a trunk in the back. So am I just blasting my groceries with air when I'm driving on the highway?
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's how they get their air conditioning. Because if they forgot to put rear headlights on properly, then maybe they forgot air conditioning, so that's what they do. I really don't know. And like, it's so weird because it's the body style and shape and size of a Porsche Cayman, but the front is kind of a Ferrari, but the back is kind of a Porsche, but it's none of either.
I love it. It's copy paste gone wrong.
Yeah, and I'm like, I can't wait for someone to just whop a huge lawsuit on them because Ferrari does not hold back with their lawsuits.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's just a crazy car, and I honestly at this point I really want to go to China and see how many more cars like this they have out there.
It would be a very fun trip to go to a Chinese auto show and just point out all the wacky cars.
Yup.
I also just love this awkward emerald green, weird pearl color.
Two
on it.
tone, yeah.
Yeah, with the gold wheels. It's just cars. This car is a trip.
I think it's well, if anyone who works for Porsche or Ferrari is listening, I think this is the direction your cars need to go. This is what we need to work towards, a melding of two lovely brands. I think we can create a beautiful car for the road.
Right, right. The harmony of two class leaders in sports cars coming together to create the Eagle.
Yup. Well, guys, that's all we have for today. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And make sure to watch our previous videos for more car culture. You can catch the audio version of our podcast on Anchor.fm and Spotify. The link for that will be in the description. Also, you can follow our Instagram at carculture_TV. And stay tuned for next week's video. Thanks.
Thank you.